Georgia continues to top the headlines, not only in our state, but across the country, as we're close to 24 hours away from the deadline for counties to finish auditing votes for the presidential election. So far, uncounted votes were found in 3 counties, moving President Trump's vote count a little higher. However, it's not enough to turn the state red once again. 11 Live's Hope Ford is live outside the state capitol with what happens next. Hope?
Well, more than 2,700 votes were found on a memory card in Fayette County, making this the second county in 2 days where missing votes were found in this audit. But what happened in Fayette County is not the same thing as what happened in Floyd County yesterday.
This is a slightly different situation from Floyd. These were scanned votes that are on a memory card, whereas Floyd were a box of unscanned votes.
Gabriel Sterling in the Secretary of State's office confirms both instances were human error. But in Fayette County, the votes were scanned, just not uploaded into the county system. While in Floyd, the Secretary of State's office says someone neglected to scan the votes at all. This means President Trump roughly gained 400 more votes. Sterling says this is an example the audit process is working.
The human beings that are part of this are the weakest link in the whole system. But that's why there's these checks and double checks and triple checks that we do before we finalize the audit phase of this.
As for other counties, we know 21 are either plus or minus 1 off the original ballot count. 57 counties had 0 deviations from their original ballot count. Despite the missed votes and calls for the Secretary of State to resign by fellow Republicans, Sterling says this is the most secure election in Georgia's history. Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms praised the transparency from the Secretary of State.
It has been quite refreshing to see our Secretary of State just say, quite simply, he wants to administer a fair election. And I appreciate and applaud his courage in standing up against his own party to say that I will not allow you to interfere with this election in Georgia.
Now, we received a response from Doug Collins not too long ago. He said, with the fate of the Senate hinging on the January runoffs, I can't think of a more critical time to make sure we get this right. Now, Sterling did add that they are confident they will complete the audit by tomorrow and certify those results by Friday, which is required by law. Now, the Trump campaign can ask for a recount after that is done. And Sterling said that all counties, all 159 counties, have received high-speed ballot counters just in case that recount were to take place.